Good morning, everybody. It is again Writer Wednesday. I know, shocking when I come online. I hope everyone is having a fantastic week so far, and I hope everyone is enjoying some writing time, much needed writing time. I don't know about you, but I need a little bit more writing time. It's been kind of a busy couple of weeks, and this week is shaping up to be no different. I have a lot of miscellaneous weird projects and interviews and things that I'm doing that is kind of taking away from, as I pull my hair, taking away from my whole writing process, and it's kind of getting me down. So hopefully you guys are doing a little bit better. Now this week, I wanted to talk a little bit about book covers. So in specific, what they mean to rapid releasing. Because there are a lot of people who, maybe even just with book covers in general, don't think that they really matter all that much. And so then when you take that on to the next level, if you're rapid releasing and you're doing things very quickly, you're increasing your velocity of publication, does it make a difference? Do you have to have a good cover when you already have a fan base or when you already have people who are latching on to your books? Well, the answer is yes and yes. You will always need to have a good cover. And here's the reason why, guys. We take in 90% of the information around us when we obviously have the vision of sight through sight. So we're very visual animals. We like to see things, and we actually absorb the information so much faster. In fact, it's 60,000 times faster that we absorb information, process it in our brain, and be able to make a decision over text. So your image of your cover, or if you put a social media image, any kind of image that you put out there, people are going to be able to process that way faster than any information that you put in text and writing. And so you want to have that information delivered in a very quick and easily consumable way. It's just like your website in a sense. You know how they say that you have like 3 seconds to capture the attention of your ideal customer who lands on your website or they'll click off? Same thing goes for your cover. Now, every book, while it's true that you're going to have a fan base who will probably buy everything, you probably haven't tapped into your entire market ever. And so you're always in that perpetual state of trying to find your ideal readers so that they can continue to come and get into your circle. So every book cover has that opportunity to be able to pull them in and have them start in on your stories wherever they're at, and then eventually go through your backlist. And so if you want to continue, on your 12th book to pull people through the books that you've already written, you want to make sure that you're providing covers that do a couple of things. The first one is you want them to be able to relay what genre you're actually writing in. It's so important, and it's something that I think when I first began, I can't say that I overly understood as well. Because when you first get into it, you think, okay, my book has to stand out. It can't be like all these other covers. Why are they all the same? Ugh. And I get it, because I was that exact same way. It was like I didn't want it to be exactly the same, but in the back of my mind, I still knew, well, it has to be similar. So, for instance, with my Pendamis Chronicles, I had a book cover with a girl on the cover because that was kind of the trend of YA at the time. And I had as much of a sci-fi vibe as I could go for. It was a blue cover. It had, I think Pendamis is still blue, but I kind of kept with the color schemes. But it portrayed a little bit of the sci-fi, but not a lot. And that's okay because it wasn't fully sci-fi. But here was the problem. As I designed that cover, things were shifting in the YA cover category. They were kind of going more abstract instead of being, young girls on the cover. And they fluctuate back and forth. It kind of just depends. But for me, I wasn't seeing the kind of sales I wanted once I saw all 3 books out there. So I believe they went out in October and November of 2017. So in 2018, about April-ish, I decided, you know what, I'm going to test different covers. I want to see if doing an abstract version of this cover is going to make a difference. This is the benefit of being an indie author, guys. You can do this sort of thing and test stuff out all the time. It's up to you. That way you can find your specific sweet spot. But when I tested it, something really interesting happened. So I had those 3 books. The 6 months from the time that they published, so from the time that Polarities came out in October to April, that was about 6 months, I believe. It should be 6 months. And I earned like $600 in that whole time frame for those 3 books, okay? And including Oracle. But Oracle didn't come until a little bit later in the next year. So those books altogether earned $600. Not too bad. $100 a month was my average. But when I went ahead and redesigned the covers, and I did all of them at the same time. So I did Polarities, Pendamis, and Revolutions, as well as Oracle, because I felt all of them kind of didn't have the branding that I really wanted. So I redesigned them, and guess what, guys? My income for those books tripled. And it wasn't just the Pendamis Chronicles, it was Oracle as well. And Oracle's a different genre. It's urban fantasy. It's got a lot of more adult undertones. But I ended up putting a more prominent person on the cover for that one. Now, when that happened, my income tripled. I was able to earn the $600 that I had over that 6-month time frame in 2 months. So that to me says that there's power in making sure that your cover and your branding is speaking not only to your genre, but to your ideal reader. So it doesn't matter if so much about cliches or what other people are doing if it's similar, because here's the thing. Those readers want to know very quickly, is this going to be something I like? Is it something that is similar to something I've already read that I like? Especially if you're new to them. And so if you can find a series or find a book that is kind of the same as yours and you like their cover, have your designer come up with something that's similar. Not the same, because plagiarism in copywritten covers is another thing. You don't want to plagiarize, but you can do similar things. Don't use the exact same images, don't use the exact same fonts, but you can do things that are very similar. Yes, that does mean it's not the most creative out of the box, but at the same time, if you're a new author, you don't need to be overly creative with your covers. You need to stick with what works until you have that fan base. And then at that point, you're going to have more funds to be able to hire maybe better designers or hire people who are able to come up with photo shoots that are specific solely to your books, things like that. But in the meantime, you really need to think about, okay, what is the best marketing decision that I can make when it comes to this book? And one of the things that I found was really important, not only is the genre specific stuff, but you want to make sure that you are kind of tapping into the psychology of color as well. So if you have a lighter, like cozy mystery, for instance, you're going to be using some of the softer colors that are going on, maybe some pastels, lighter blues, lighter yellows, a little bit of oranges, whatever. But if you're doing something that is dark, like the Windhaven Witches, you're going to want to make sure that you're incorporating those darker elements so readers very quickly and easily can see, okay, this is something that has some darker undertones. What is it? The whole goal with your cover, at least when you're on a sales site, is for them to look at your cover and go, okay, I want to know more. Then, from that point, your book blurb and your tagline are going to be the thing that sells your book. It's going to be the thing that pulls them right through from your cover that drew them into it all the way to that purchase button. Okay? Now, covers, when it comes to a series, it's very important to be making sure that when you have a series that you are planning, one that is meant to be a series that is going to continue on, whether it be rapid release or whether it be one that you're kind of slowly releasing, you want to make sure all of those covers match in a way that your readers can quickly and easily spot it. You know, if they see it out in the wild somewhere, they're going to know, number one, it's your book, and number two, it's a continuation of the series that they've already began reading. So whether there's an element that's similar, whether your titles are always in the same spot, whether it is colors that are always the same, whatever the case might be, you want to have some sort of continuity that gives the branding of your series and something that's going to give the branding to you as an author as well. Your book covers are always going to be part of your branding, and it's something that you probably want to be maybe a little bit conscious of as you're going along, because the more you get, the more people are going to get a vibe of who you are and what type of books you write. This is why it's really important too when you have that cross-genre writing stuff going on. So even though I'm a genre-bending author, and I'm sure some of you are as well, you have this divergence, I think, within genres where if they're so vastly different, you probably don't want to keep them in the same pen name, even if you're the same author. And it has nothing to do with, I don't want that author or those people to know that I write this book or anything like that. It actually has to do with diluting your marketability. And so that's a whole other topic, guys, but it's really important because you are targeting audiences who like a specific type of book. And it's really hard to continue to advertise to or pull readers in when you have, those divergent genres that you're writing in, and they don't know which one to pick and which ones are the same. And it gets really confusing. And the last thing you want to do is confuse a reader, because I'll tell you what, they'll just go somewhere else where it's clearer. You know what I mean? Don't do that. All right, so covers, because they are important, you have two options. And, well, technically three, I guess. One is to do it yourself. And I don't recommend this unless you have kind of a creative vibe where you're tech savvy, you know how to do things online. You can go ahead and do covers on your own. I've been trained as a designer, so for me, I'm a little bit pickier on what I do for myself and what I do for others. But it means having to do some research. Take a look at your genre. Make sure that you are trying to fit in enough, but still stand out. And how do you do that? You use slightly different colors. You use slightly different images. You put in a couple of extra elements. You can use a different kind of overlay. Whatever the case might be, you can still make your cover stand out, but look like it fits and belongs in that genre, because you want people to purchase it. You want people to be interested enough to read your book blurb and go on. And designing a cover, really, it comes down to that creative eye. So if you have that, go for it. You can do it with Photoshop, you can do it with Canva, you can do it with BookBrush. There's a lot of different programs out there that are available to be able to do book covers. I do recommend using something that's a little bit more advanced if you're trying to do paperback books, for instance, but it's not unheard of. You can't, it's not something like you have to have Photoshop in order to be able to do book covers, but it is the program that I use because that's where I was trained. Now, if you're going to go ahead and do your own covers, definitely be careful on typography. Typography is the biggest giveaway, at least to me, when people are looking at a book cover, they're like, it's really good, except I just can't figure out, there's something a little bit off about it, and I'm not quite sure why. Usually, it's the typography, because people who are not trained in graphic design really don't pay much attention to the way that the words are on the page. So typography is the fonts you choose, the colors that they are, the type of filters or overlays or any kind of thing that you do to the font in order to make it look different or unique or stand out. And most authors will just put, their title on there, they'll put their words on there, and off they go. There's like no thought whatsoever into what can be done with the typography. But it is an actual design element. And as a design element, it needs to have a little bit of thought. It doesn't have to be a ton, but a little bit, because there's a lot of really cool things that you can do with your typography. So pay attention to the titles and the typography on covers that you really like, and see if you can piece apart what it is about those titles, what it is about that typography that you really enjoy, and see if you can replicate it. Because more than likely, they have done something that isn't just the standard write a word and put it on the page. Now, if you have a little bit more money and you're able to hire a designer, I actually recommend this, and that's coming from me, because as a designer, as someone who does this sort of thing for a living on the side, I can tell you, I make my own mistakes, even with my own books. And part of the problem is that I think of the story and I'm engrossed in the story. I know what's happening in it. It's living in my head, and it becomes so big that I can't see the forest through the trees. And so I designed something that's almost a little bit muddy and watered down. And so I waste so much time, is what I would say, going through iterations of a cover when I could have probably written out some information, told my designer what all this stuff is in my head, kind of what's going on with it, give them the quick overlay, and let them do their job. but I haven't always had money in order to be able to do that. And in fact, I've only had one other cover designer design a cover for me in the past, and that's Awakening. And the only reason that happened was because it was during the Kickstarter thing that I was doing with Prolific Works and Kickstarter. They were offering like a crowdfunding for authors test run, I guess is what I would call it. And they invited me to join in and participate in it. I did that, and they had their own cover designers that they were working with. So that was the only cover that I've ever had designed by someone other than me, but I did design the back cover of the paperback. So it's kind of like a merged version, I guess I would say, where the main imagery, though, it was definitely designed by their cover designer, and he was amazing. Now, this year, I am hiring for the very first time my own cover designer to work on the Oracle series. Oracle's coming out next year for the series. Obviously, the first book's out already. But the series itself, I'm going to be revamping, so all of the covers are going to match. And I have hired a designer who is going to start in August creating images for the first 6 books. And it'll be really interesting to see what kind of concepts he comes up with, because this is all new to me. But I've seen his work. I've talked to him a number of times. I continue to see the types of work that he puts out there right now for other authors who are in my genre, and I am really excited to see what he comes up with. So that's something that's new for me as well, because, well, first of all, you get to the point where you're really busy and you would rather be writing than just doing everything all the time. And so there are certain elements that if you can outsource them, you go for it. When you have the means and you have the ability to do so, trust me, you don't want to do everything all the time. It gets really, really old really fast. So those are some of my tips. Hopefully they're helpful. There are going to be a lot more. The podcast today was jam-packed full of tips on how to do different things, why covers are important. I do talk about some of the same things, not all of them, but hopefully you'll find them helpful. And if you're in the process of trying to figure out your covers, I hope that you will listen to the tips that I have for either designing your own covers or hiring someone to make it happen, because it's going to be a lot of fun. Covers are meant to be fun, and it's meant to be such a cool visual representation of all the hard work that you've been putting in for your books. All right. Whew. I think I've had my coffee, guys. See? It's only it's half drunk, so I talk fast. All right. I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. I am actually going to go and get some real writing done. I am going to work on, I believe it's chapter 12. I'm not quite sure. Somewhere in there. of Haunted Legacy. I'm supposed to be finished with the halfway mark, but I'm not. We're getting there. Oh goodness. Thanks, David. I appreciate that. I think you're pretty smart too. I'm glad you're here. Be sure to check out the podcast as well. I have a few tips in there. If you have any questions, let me know. But I love design. I love talking about, obviously, design works and books and all the craziness. But it is a lot of fun when you can design your own books and when you can hire out. I think both serve their purpose very well, and they're so important, especially when you're starting out. For me, when I started out with writing and everything, there was a lot that was going on, and I couldn't afford a $20 promo, let alone hiring somebody to do a book cover. So you have the knowledge, I guess, to know that at some point, as you write your books, if that's where you're at, if any of you are at that point where you're not quite there yet and you can't afford a designer, know that at some point you will get there, because you start where you're at, you work with what you've got, and then as soon as you have the ability to do better or do more or do something different, that's when you do it. And who knows, you might find in 2021, guys, that I end up redesigning Pennamus again. Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I'll hire Christian to do it. I don't know. We'll find out. It's like a crazy up in the air thing. All right, go forward, have some awesome days, and get a lot of writing done between now and next Wednesday. I am going to try to do the same. I promise next Wednesday I will say that I'm past 15. That is my for sure goal, that I am going to be done with the next 3 chapters and be in the second half of Haunted Legacy. All right, have a good day, guys. Talk to you later. Bye for now.